Hi everyone, this is Kristen and welcome to session 5 of the Raise More Funds module. This is pretty much the session I think you've been waiting for of this module. So today we're going to talk about process and choosing your revenue channels. There's a lot of different ways to raise funds in nonprofits. And we're going to talk about some of the biggest ones. Not talking about all of them, but we'll get the biggest ones. And I'm going to kind of go through quickly. I'm going to try to go through the pros and cons of each, as well as give you some of my my biggest tips. Now, these tips have come from a plethora of places. Some of them have come from executives and consultants I've worked with who have decades of experience, are much more well-versed in fundraising than I am. Others have come from personal experiences, things I've done wrong that I later had to learn from, things that I accidentally did right. And then I realized, wow, I need to do more of that. I'm so glad I did it that way. So they've come from just a whole host of places. So I hope these tips are helpful for you. I do think that some of them might be pretty new to you, but if you implement them, you really might be able to see a dramatic result fairly quickly within your organization. And I'm really excited. I do hope you guys utilize the comments and kind of report back and let me know what happened when you implemented some of these kind of tips, made some of these changes in your fundraising model. I'd be really interested to know, and I'd love to learn from that. So, all right, so we're going to get started. So the first one we want to talk about is mail. Mail. So direct mail. So that is the process of getting your supporters or prospective supporters and sending them letters and asking them for money. Now, there's two different types of mail. There's house file mail. So those are your current givers, people who have given to you in the past 0 to 12 months, 0 to 18 months, maybe 0 to 24 months. That's your house file. Those are your active givers. Those are the folks that are going to get an ask every single month. You're going to update them on what you're doing. Those are the folks you're kind of building up, right? They're kind of down here in this the low dollar level that you're hoping to build to mid and then high dollar donor. We'll get to that next. There's also prospecting mail. So prospecting mail, that is mail that you send to prospective supporters. So that you're going to have to spend a little bit more time introducing yourself, your mission, using the pitch you've developed to show them who the villain is, who the victim is, and how you're leading that victim away from the villain, how you're transforming lives. You really got to have your pitch down for prospecting mail. And in fact, when you start doing prospecting mail, it will take some time before you kind of get that like golden letter that will raise the most money or bring in the most supporters. And sometimes it's not really the pitch you thought would work. You've got to try different things. And that's the beauty. If you work with a mail vendor, they're going to try different letters. So they might send out 30,000 tests of one letter, and then another 30,000 tests of another, and then 50 of another, and then they do a head-to-head test to see which letter performed best, what message. And sometimes the letter will be the exact same, but they'll just change a couple of things, like they'll change the outer envelope. So they'll do an envelope that has a picture of a woman that you served or a family that you served, or maybe they'll have some words on it like confidential or property of so and so to try to get people's attention. But then maybe the other test is they'll send out nothing. It'll be completely blank, and you're like, it's just a white envelope. But sometimes the white envelope, the boring envelope, actually does better. So you've got to make sure, like if you start getting into mail. If you get into prospecting, you're going to want to hire a good vendor, someone to help you, because prospecting is difficult. You do have to do different tests. And you also have to rent the list too. So unless you have a really good list of prospective supporters sitting around, that's thousands of people, you're going to have to rent lists. And not all lists are created equal. In fact, there's a lot of list brokers out there who aren't super trustworthy. Their lists are crap. And you've paid a lot of money to mail these letters to folks that have bad addresses or who really aren't on board with your mission, even though the list broker promised you they were. So there's a lot of different direct mail vendors out there. You can just do a consultant who kind of knows the industry, and that person might write the letter, but then they'll hire the printer and they'll go to the list broker. Or there's houses, mail shops that do it all for you. They write the letter, they have their own list, they have their own, printing relationships, and then they do all the tracking themselves. So there's different routes. I think I'd like to do a longer module in the future just on direct mail, because there's a lot you can learn. In the bonus material, I'll actually give you a book recommendation for how you can get started in direct mail. I actually did a lot of our mail for a long time in-house at Students Wife. I wrote it, we printed it, we sent it, and we caged it, and we made sure we looked at all of the donations that came in and figured out what was working, what wasn't working. So pros of direct mail, it will help you build a base of supporters that can grow. So these supporters might come in at $25 a month, but year over year over year, if you retain them, these could become major supporters. I think mostly all of my there's maybe 5 major supporters. So supporters who give, well over $20,000 a year to our organization. But only 5 of them have come not from a smaller ask. Often folks who have the capacity to give more, they're going to give you $25 or $50 or maybe $100, and they're going to see how you do with that donation. They're going to want to see how you respond, how you think, and they're going to check out your messaging and your branding and what your story brand is, right? Make sure that you line up with what they're doing. We had a donation come in just the other day. I actually know the guy's address, the supporter's address, by heart, because I've written so many thank you notes over the years. I never been able to have a phone call with him. I never could find his phone number. Couldn't find his email. I would write him handwritten notes. And one of our team members, who's much more savvy than I am, she finally found his number, called him up, had one conversation, and immediately he went from being like a $500 donor about once a month to $20,000 after one call. I've been corresponding with this gentleman for years. So your mail is going to allow you to get that wide base right here. And you want as wide base as possible, because only a certain percentage of those supporters are going to go up. They're going to have the capacity to give. That wide base is also going to help protect you. So with the COVID-19 crisis, something that it's kind of discouraging. There's sites out there that pretty much discourage groups from doing prospect mail or prospect phone campaigns, because they say, oh, it's a waste of money. You're taking donor money and putting into fundraising, and that's not being a good steward. Really? I'm taking someone's gift, I'm investing that gift in a way that's going to grow the organization and keep the organization growing and sustain, not only sustain, but grow the organization. That's investment. Now, as long as I'm smart with who I invest that money with, how I invest that money. That's what they want me to do. They want me to double and triple their investment. But there's sites out there, they'll rank organizations or nonprofits, or they sort of poo-poo the idea of this direct mail and telemarketing. And true, there is a lot of money to be made in the direct mail and telemarketing world, and there's a lot of people who've gotten rich off that. So that's not wrong when people say that. But that doesn't mean that those aren't good fundraising streams and channels for you, because when COVID-19 hit, I had a friend who runs a conservative organization. The day after everyone kind of started deciding to go on quarantines, I got a text. I just had to slash $250,000 from my budget and lay off 5 people. She had to do it instantly. Why? Because she's major gift driven. Major donors are the main investors in her organization. And so when there's economic downturn, when there's economic uncertainty, those investors, they have to stop giving. So if they're giving you $50,000 a month, $100,000 a month, and all of a sudden they stop giving, how are you going to sustain that? How are you going to keep your team members on board? How are you going to go without having to lay off someone? Well, the short answer is she couldn't do that. Now, we have a much wider base at Students for Life. So yes, it would really hurt us if major supporters stopped giving, and we would have to make some big cuts. But our organization would continue to survive as long as our monthly sacrificial donors who give $25, $50 a month continue to give. That's the real benefit of male giving, is that those male givers eventually can become major givers. Those male givers can offset the highs and lows that you will see just naturally with major givers. A con of direct mail: it takes time to build and to find that right pitch, as I mentioned. It's also costly to start. So you need an investment. You almost need to create an investment proposal for one of your major supporters and say, I need an investment of $75,000. For $75,000, we are going to mail this many pieces. We're going to generate this much in immediate revenue, this much in revenue in 6 months, this much revenue in 12 months, this much revenue in 2 years, and show them the investment of that. Maybe it's just a loan that they give you that then you pay back. That's actually a really interesting way. I know some groups have started their direct mail process. Is they get a loan from an investor, from a supporter, that maybe might give them an interest-free loan, which a lot of times you can try to ask them just to keep as an in-kind a donation later on. But you ask them for the loan. Don't ask them for a straight-up gift. Ask them for a loan so you can launch a direct mail program that you know is going to transform your organization. Explain it, lay out the math. It's a good investment for them. It's a good investment for your organization. Another option is to find a direct mail house or firm that will sign you as a no-risk client, it's called, meaning that you don't have to lay money down for the prospecting that you do, but they're going to basically recoup their costs off of your house file. Remember I talked about earlier whether you've got prospects and you have house files. So your prospect mail, you're usually going to lose money. I think the goal in direct mail prospecting is that you recoup 80 cents on the dollar. If you make money on a prospect mailer, you should just keep sending it out till it stops making money, okay? So you're going to lose money on that prospect mail, but that direct mail firm knows if they have a good letter, they're only losing 20 cents on a letter. They take those supporters, their prospects who give, they put them in the house file and they start mailing that house file monthly. Well, that house file is going to return income. It should at least return a dollar per person on the list. So if you have 10,000 people on the list, you should be generating at least $10,000. And then they can pay themselves back from that house file fund. 2 ways you can get started. All right. That's kind of my big tip for how to get started. The other thing, tip, and I mentioned this earlier for mail, is you got to think differently. You got to do testing. Think outside the box, or in this case, the envelope. What can you do that sets you apart? Because the biggest challenge in direct mail is getting someone to open your letter. They have to open your letter. They can't say, oh, this is a piece of junk mail, throw it away. If they do, you're never going to get their money. You're never going to get their support and investment in you. You got to get them to open the letter. So the envelope is really important. If you're sending mail internally, and you're doing this every month from your organization, some things to think about. Handwriting the addresses. I know your staff and your volunteers are going to want to kill you. Handwrite the addresses. Just try it. Maybe just try it for a month. There's companies you can pay that will do this for you if this works. There's also companies that do auto pen, so they can take your handwriting, kind of turn it into a font, and then it looks handwritten. So there's ways to get around if it works. But stop putting the envelope, the pre-printed label on the envelope. Do handwritten. Try it. Something else that works. Don't do the auto writing the return address right on the top and have your organization name right on, because they're going to know, oh, this is somebody asking me for money. If you say XYZ organization serving the community for 35 years in your address, they're going to know instantly it's a solicitation. Try different envelopes. Try a windowed envelope that kind of looks like a bill. Sometimes put some text on the envelope that, urgent, confidential, your eyes only. There's different things you can do. Maybe put a picture on. Do different sizes of envelopes, different colored envelopes, manila envelopes, catalog envelopes, 9 by 12 envelopes, 6 by 9. So it's when you have to fold your paper hamburger. Do a different envelope size. Don't do the same. Just don't do the same thing. All right. All right. So I'm gonna go into major giving. Oh my gosh, I feel like I could do modules for each and every one of these and be hours long. All right, major giving. Pros. You don't need startup cash to start major giving. You just have to start meeting with folks. This major gift can allow you to grow very quickly, to go from, the concept to launch in a couple of months because this one supporter funded your effort. Cons. Major giving takes time. It takes time to build a relationship. You can waste a lot of time chasing down bad prospects, people that you thought might be willing to give, and you've tried to meet with them, or you have a meeting, and then you've realized they're giving priorities, their passion doesn't line up with your passion, and it's never going to work. Another big con with major giving, and that folks don't really realize, I think, until they get into it, is that major donors give a lot to your organization, and they know why they give, but then they also can get distracted and make special requests of you that can get you off your mission. And it's very hard to say no to a major donor, someone who may be giving 25% of your income, then calls you and says, I have this great idea. We should totally do this. And you're like, okay, how do I do this? How do I make this fit within my mission? How do I do this so our staff understands what's going on? It can be challenging. Sometimes you have to tell the supporter. As much as I'd love to do them, that's a great opportunity and idea. I just don't think it's prudent for us to do it right now. We're having a lot of success with this new strategy we unveiled. And, I was just checking our goals the other day, and we're on track to meet them. And I just worry about, redirecting my team's time away from that. So those are conversations you'll have to have if you have a lot of major givers. I certainly have had to have those conversations. Tips: prospect locally, from contacts of contacts. Go to events where major givers will be, and meet them at the cocktail hour. Other organizations, other ministries that you think, well, if somebody gives to that type of ministry, they'll probably give to my ministry. Go to their fundraisers. Don't you have to buy a table, but go to the fundraiser and mingle. The mingling hour, like the cocktail hour, is always the most important there. But go find those folks. Find your prospects. So just like with mail, in major giving, you're going to have your prospects, your leads, and your donors. Your donors are folks that have given at a high level that okay, my major giving level, and this depends. And when I eventually release the major giving module, I'll get into this, of how you qualify a major giver. Because maybe for you, a major giver is $500. Maybe for me, it's $1,000. Maybe for someone else, it's $10,000. But however you qualify your major givers, so your donors on your major giving caseload will be those people that have qualified, or they could be donors who give a lower amount, but you've done a wealth screen on them. You've run them through a Wealth Engine screen. There's a group called Wealth Engine, and there's a few other groups that will basically take your supporters and run them through databases and tell you this is what we think is their actual capacity. It's based on their political giving. It's based on their real estate. And a lot of this you can actually do yourself. You don't have to do it through a screen. Screen is faster if you have thousands and thousands of people on your list. So somebody on a major donor caseload might be a lower dollar giver, but you believe has a capacity to give much, much higher. And then you also have your leads, your prospects. So these are people who haven't given to your organization, but they belong to a society that's only people who own businesses worth $10 million or more are allowed to join. or you went to a fundraiser for a local group and this person was their platinum sponsor for the night and they kept thanking them profusely. You're going to know these people probably have the capacity to be major givers for your organization as well. Experiences work. So, talking about developing your pitch, I've talked a lot about major giving already, but you definitely want to continue to grow the major donors' affinity to the organization, for them to know that what they're supporting is as producing real change. So think of experiences, think of ways that you can invite that person in to kind of see for themselves the difference your organization is making. Give them those opportunities to get on that ground floor. Another thing for major giving, and this is, I think I teased this earlier, but high dollar fundraising mail. So this was an idea I came off of one of those high paid consultants that I thought at the time was a waste of my money and wasting my supporters' money. But then at the end of the day, I realized that was probably the most valuable thing this person ever taught me. So what we had always done at our organization was we had a low dollar. So we just had it was really a house file. So anybody donated, and I would pull a select. So a group of folks, I'd say, okay, anybody donated 0 to 18 months, in the past 18 months, and you gave over $25, they're going to get this letter. And everyone got the same letter from me. What we started to do is we separated out our high dollar donors. At the time, I picked anybody who had given $250 or more. And actually, I think I still do that, even though a major donor to us is, I think, over $5,000 now. But so now we have 2 house files. And I had to write 2 letters, and we had to do 2 different processes. But what I did was I created this letter a little differently. I put some more detail in it. I made it less kitschy. I did a catalog envelope, or I think it's a 6x9 envelope. I made sure those envelopes were handwritten, and the direct mail, the low dollar direct mail for the house file, it was too many, so those were auto penned, or they were printed on the envelope. But the high dollars are always hand addressed. I made sure to include handwritten notes on the letter. So when I print them out, or we print them out at Staples, I would say, "Hi, Ben. Great to talk to you a couple weeks ago. Hope you'll enjoy this update." It goes a long, long way. Actually, I need to write a note to make sure I do that in my upcoming one. But I'm literally writing a note to myself right now. I kind of thought of like different creative ways to get their attention, so they would know, oh, this isn't just a typical fundraising letter that I'm getting. This is something different, something special. The other thing I did was I created a way to, just in my system, my database, to tag donors no ask. So I have annual givers who every year give in December, and they made a pledge or they're supporting a program. I wanted them to continue to receive the mail because I wanted them to get the updates I'm giving, but I didn't want them to feel like I was asking them for $500 when really I really need to ask them for $25,000, but it'll be coming, and they know it's coming December. So I created a version of the letter that just didn't have an ask at all in it. I always include a BRE, or a business reply envelope, in every mail, whether it's low dollar or high dollar. But for those people, I didn't actually ask for money in the letter, and I didn't include a reply device. So every direct mail letter you send has to have, a letter, the ask, a reply device, the reply card, and it needs a BRE. We have a BRE account, meaning the supporter can put their check, their cash, hopefully their check, into the envelope, or their credit card information with the reply device, mail it. They don't have to put a stamp on it. It comes back to us. We pay for postage. You can apply for a BRE account with the U.S. Postal Service. Not difficult. They give you a little barcode, and then you print that barcode on all of your on your envelopes. You just hire a printer and print those envelopes, and then you have them in stock. So with these high dollar house files, half were getting asks and half weren't getting asks. Everyone was getting a BRE, but only the people that ask got a reply device. And it works. It totally works, folks. And it helps keep your major donors informed of what's going on, but they also know that you're not expecting them to give every time they write a letter. In fact, I had somebody complain to me one time. It's like, what did you say in the letter? I said, I don't expect you to give, I'm just mailing this to you because I want you to have the update. I want you to know what's going on in the organization because things are changing so rapidly. So that to me, that one of the biggest tips I learned for the major donors is start a major donor mail program that supplements your low dollar, your everybody else program, and you will see results from that. Phone. So phone fundraising. So this is something you can do in-house. You can have a phone-a-thon where you've got staff, you've got volunteers. You can call and just update supporters and talk to them. You can call and ask them for funds. Or you can also hire a telemarketing company. I'm going to give you a recommendation to the telemarketing company I actually used. I've been using since 2007. They were the first kind of fundraising consultant to take Students for Life on. We had no money, and they totally helped us build our list. Telemarketing fundraising, a con is that it's very expensive. It's more expensive. The cost to acquire a new supporter is higher than on phone than it is for mail or email. Email is the cheapest, then mail, then phone. But the ROI, the return on investment of phone donors, tends to be very, very good. We've seen this and we've measured this ourselves. Also, you can get out a message quicker on phones. If you've got a whole group of people making phone calls, it could be off, if you've got an urgent issue, which that's always very good to fundraise on, urgent, time-sensitive issue. Sometimes you won't be able to send out a letter because time you write the letter, get it sent to the printer. If you're using nonprofit postage with the post office, as opposed to a first class stamp, which, that depends on, the package and who you're mailing to. If you're doing nonprofit postage, your postage can be delayed significantly. So that alters, by the time that a person might get the letter, whatever you're fundraising on, that opportunity might be gone. But phone, you can do it very quickly. So there's a little bit about phone. Urgency is really key on the phone because your scripts have to be so short when you're phone banking. If you're calling just to thank supporters, I really encourage you to do that. You're going to have to, and you start doing phone fundraising, you're going to have to be very quick on the phone. Like, I'm Kristen. I'm not calling to ask you for money. I'm calling to thank you, because folks are so used to, if you say, oh, this is so-and-so from Students for Life, they immediately know it can be a fundraiser. So you have to kind of quickly get out there that you're not fundraising. You're just calling to give them an update. You're just calling them to invite them to something. All right, online and email. So the pros here, online is cheap to start. Allows you to test your messages, your narrative, your story pitch quickly, and you can alter it, and you can test it very cheaply. The cons to online is that it can be time consuming to set up the landing pages, how you do those landing pages, what they look like and the design. You want them to look professional. Then you've got to connect the payment processor into the landing page. You want to make sure you're using a payment processor that lines up with your values and that's not taking 4, 5, 6% off of every donation. Now that I do online fundraising and I spend a lot of time, I get very angry when the groups I donate to, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're using a payment processor that's taking 6% of my donation or 5% of my donation. You don't want to do that. I'll give you a recommendation. Actually, Brendan, who you've been hearing from this training series, Brendan O'Mora works for one of those payment processors. Actually, he became he got networked with them when he worked with Students for Life, because we use Cornerstone personally for our payment processing, because they're a Christian firm and they beat out everyone else's rates. So I'll put a link, or I'll just give you Brendan's email at the end. So online tips. I love online fundraising. I like it because I can write the email, I can send it out, and I instantly see how our supporters how they feel about an issue, right? Are they donating? Did no one donate? Did everybody and their mother respond back to me? My inbox suddenly got flooded. It's really good to know what is resonating with your supporters. There's a lot of organizations that will actually spend $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 doing donor surveys to figure out what is it that our donors really why did they give to us? They kind of answer those questions, right? Why did they give us, and what are they hoping we'll do? And what are the issues that they really hope we take on? Well, if you're doing a lot of email fundraising and you're getting the replies back to your inbox and you're responding to them, or at least seeing them and having another team member respond for you, you're going to know. Your finger is going to be on the pulse of what's going on. And that, I think, is like my biggest tip for online fundraising is you've got to be personal. Write the letters yourself. Even if you end up having to eventually hire, like I've had to hire writers to help me because of the, just the influx. There's so many of them. But write them as much as you can personally and then respond to the messages. I can't tell you. I had one person one time send me this really nasty email. And I just wrote back. I don't know. I was feeling sassy. I said, sir, this is no way to talk to a lady. I cannot believe you talk to a lady like that. I'll unsubscribe you, but you should watch your mouth. And then he wrote back, apologizes, and now he still donates. I know his name. I know where he lives. I've written letters. It's really quite funny. But I can tell when a message has resonated, when our supporters are amped up and they're like, yes, that's what we need to do. I know because I see the replies. I may not be able to now answer all the replies because sometimes I can get like 500 to 600 emails in my inbox. But we are answering them. Somebody on our team will answer those messages. I've actually found out really amazing information. So kind of intelligence of, Planned Parenthood. I was just at a school board meeting and Planned Parenthood is trying to get sex ed curriculum in. I'm like, wait, what? Tell me all about it. I need to know right now. So there's a lot you can do. Another tip, I mentioned this with the phone, you got to have a sense of urgency. Urgency really works. You really should need a victim in your narrative and your online narrative as well. And monetize your mission. We've already talked about that. Having that, $25 right now will pay for this. That's going to help because these are going to be lower dollar donors, meaning they're going to give lower amounts. So you want to do that. You can also, and we're going to get into this in donation types in another session. Also use online to start your monthly giving program. Monthly giving is going to be big because it is like easy money. When you get $20,000 a month coming in from monthly givers and you haven't had to do anything, you haven't sent them a letter, you haven't sent a reminder, just coming in and you're just sending them thank yous, that's huge. That's huge. That's game changing. And you can use your landing page. If you use, I'll give you a referral to WebConnects, a company that we use at the end. But WebConnects is great because you can do, here's your one time, and then there's a checkbox. Make this a monthly gift. Every single online landing page that you use should have that option there. Every single one. And people will check it without even asking. And then you got to start sending letters asking people to join your monthly giving program. But that's another training, another day. All right. Let's see. Events. Great. Pros. Great at marketing, at building affinity. Folks coming and kind of getting to finally meet firsthand, someone that's been impacted by your mission. Can really help take a supporter, maybe it's a mid-level supporter, and make them a major supporter, major donor. Cons to event, they're time consuming. You know how long events take to set up. And they can be risky. So if you had any fundraising event this spring, you know how risky fundraising events can be. I had a gala 2 years ago in New York City that then there was a freak blizzard at the end of March and there was a state of emergency declared and half of my gala couldn't make it because they physically couldn't get there. Thankfully, all of the money that I needed to raise had already been raised by table sponsors and a lot of folks who were like, I can't come, or I don't want to go to Manhattan, but I'll fund the table and you can bring students. And so our galas of Students for Life are always very fun because they're always very young because a lot of our supporters just say, we'll fund the table. And then we actually use it to build affinity and build our network there in New York City. But events can be very risky. Tips for events. Make a monthly ask. When you're up there on stage and you have your big goal that you want to make an ask for the one time and make a separate ask for monthly. have two reply cards, reply devices on the table. One from one time, one for monthly. Make sure those cards look different. They have different colors. They're not both white. And walk your folks through that. David B. Roy, a good friend of mine, founder of 40 Days to Life, has a whole program called Banquet Success. And that's one of the biggest things I took away from that Banquet Success program was have two cards. And you will see I think his stat is about a 20 to 25% increase in gifts from just making that second ask, the monthly giving. The other big tip I would say for events, and because I personally have done this, is raise the money beforehand. Go into the event in the black, meaning you've paid for everything, you've had supporters pay for everything, for the tables, and that's covered all of the costs. And so anything you raise during your ask is gravy. If you do that, the pressure will be off when something crazy happens, and it eventually will. Foundations pros. These can be great long-term, support mechanisms. You can establish a relationship, and these can be relationships that continue to go on and on and on. Cons. Foundations can take a lot of time to research, to find the foundations that will line up with your mission and your strategy, and then to build a relationship, and then to call the executive director of the foundation. Hopefully they have a phone number. Not all foundations have phone numbers. And then you have to build a relationship, and then you have to write, maybe they'll say, yes, sure, send us a letter of intent. So you have to write them an LOI, and then they say yes. Then you have to write them a proposal, and then you get it back, and then you get $1,000. That was a lot of work for $1,000. So that's a con, the time it can take. Tips for this: there is a process to foundation fundraising. Follow the process. Make the calls. Build the relationships. Send the LOIs. Something that we've done is we have an Excel sheet and a calendar. We know. The interesting thing about the foundations, a lot of foundation trainings you attend, they'll actually say that you actually have to apply to the same foundation multiple times before they even consider giving to you. So that means every year you're applying to a foundation, the same foundation, waiting for them to give to you. The other tip would be look for foundations associated with current supporters. So many of your supporters might have their own family foundations. Look for those groups. Look for foundations that maybe some of your supporters serve on the board for or affiliated with. Look for those types of relationships. All right, that was a lot for this session, I know, but that was a lot of information to go through. Like I said, I think I'm going to have to do some subsequent modules, just breaking these out because there's so much information I want to give you. But stay tuned. We're going to come back. I'm going to come back, and we're going to do another session on calendars and systems.